What's up guys and welcome back to another video. My name is Gareth from Park Cameras, as it always is, and today we're doing something a little bit different. You may be able to see in front of me I've got a bunch of Sony lenses. I've got all kinds of lenses actually, I've got cameras as well. Last year, in the summer, we did a whole video shooting with 27 different Sony lenses to kind of show off how much that kind of range of lenses, the native Sony glass, has expanded and become this really nice stable of lenses. And since then, there's loads more that have been released, and Sony have kindly sent us loads of the lenses that have come out since then. And we are going to shoot with all of them. We're going to do different types of photography, different types of video, all kinds of stuff like that. Across the next few weeks, we're going to have a few videos kind of shooting with these lenses. And today, first up, I want to talk about landscape photography, because that's a big one. We all dabble, at least, in landscape photography. We all give landscape at least a bit of time. You know, even if you don't specialize in it, it's at least one that we can all just go out and do, because you don't really have to arrange anything. You can just go out. The landscape is always there. Obviously, you have to check weather, light, all that kind of stuff, but it's always available to shoot with. So landscape's a big one, and personally, I love it because you can really take your time with landscape. You can plan things out. You can find kind of hidden little areas that maybe no one's thought of before. You can find specific compositions. And what I want to talk about today is the difference specifically between shooting with a wide angle lens, so something, for example, like the 12 to 24mm G Master lens, which is a great wide angle zoom lens, versus some kind of tighter primes, some more zoomed in lenses, even telephoto zooms as well. So we've got things like the 135mm G Master lens. We've got some telephoto kind of zooms like the 70 to 350. And of course we've got the 200 to 600 as well. Now we're going to be using this in the next couple of weeks for some wildlife stuff, but it does actually make for quite a nice landscape lens as well. I want to talk about the difference between shooting landscape with kind of a wide angle versus a much more tight kind of zoomed in focal length, something like 85mm upwards. So we're out here now at Beachy Head. Now this is one of my favorite locations for doing landscape photography, and that's because when the light hits it just right, there's so much here. There's so many different compositions. You know, my favorite view probably ever is over that way. I'm shielded by some sort of bushes now, so hopefully the wind isn't too bad, but my favorite view ever is over that way. You've got the lighthouse, you've got the cliffs, you've got the sea in the distance. The sun will be setting. I mean, there's a lot of clouds, so we're not going to see anything, but the sun will be setting somewhere over that way. We've got another lighthouse over there, a little bit down the road. We've got another kind of view of a lighthouse with the cliffs and stuff like that. You can go a little bit further down onto the beach with the kind of low tide stuff. That looks amazing. So this is one of my favorite spots for landscape photography. It's one of my kind of go-to places that I like to shoot. And we've got a few different lenses with us. We've got the 12 to 24mm G Master lens, a great wide angle option. I've got the 135 G Master lens, so a nice sort of tight telephoto option. And I've got the 200 to 600, which is going to give us a really different kind of look. Now, when it comes to picking a lens for landscape, a lot of the time, a lot of photographers will go immediately for a wide angle option. And I totally get it. A wide angle option is great for landscape. It's going to allow you to kind of capture the whole scene, the whole vista. And if you're up somewhere like here, where you've got kind of views of fields, cliffs in the distance, lighthouse, the sea, the sun, the rolling hills, you might want to use a wide angle lens to capture all of that. You know, especially if you've got kind of God rays coming down with the sun and stuff like that, a wide angle lens is going to help you capture a massive vista. Something I've learned in my time with photography is that a good view does not always mean a good photo. I've been in countless situations where I'm up the top of a big hill or way up high somewhere, and you can see for miles, but there's nothing specifically of interest that would make for a good composition. And actually, the view itself is lovely to look around, but when I'm trying to take a photo, there's nothing special about it. And the reason for that is there's no subject to the photo, it's just a view. And that means that it doesn't work as well as an actual photo. One of the most important things with landscape photography for me is finding a subject within the landscape, and that works as a spot for your eye, or the viewer's eye, to naturally rest on when viewing the photo. So whether you're using leading lines towards a subject, or you just have one prominent subject in the frame that acts as the place for the viewer's eye to rest, it's so important, because without that, the picture just feels kind of messy and without purpose, and there's nothing for the viewer's eye to kind of land on. So you need to find that in the photo. Now that is why I often use a longer lens, a telephoto option for landscape, because it allows you to really focus in on one aspect of the landscape, which works really well when you're trying to create a subject. So for example, in a wide angle shot like this one, the lighthouse is there, but it's not necessarily the focal point of the image. It does work as like a subject for your eye to naturally rest on, but there's way more sky, there's way more foreground. Whereas with the longer lens, which I'll throw up now, these were both taken last night, obviously, right now it's super cloudy. But with the longer lens, the lighthouse becomes more of the focal point of the image, the subject of the image. We've got less foreground, we've got less sky to work with, and we're using that as the specific point of the image. Now that's not to say that longer lenses work better for landscape, obviously. There's lots of different kinds of shots you can get. For example, this view of this other lighthouse, for me, kind of works better as a wide angle shot. You get more of the cliff, you get more of the kind of emptiness of the land, you know, with the cliff and then the grass and then the sea and the sky. And the lighthouse stands as this one kind of little thing amongst all this emptiness. So I really like this particular shot with a wide angle lens, but you can certainly try with a telephoto. It's certainly going to give a different viewpoint. Something else I really like doing is shooting down roads or using leading lines for landscape to draw you to a point. Now, this works with wide angle and this works with telephoto. You know, with telephoto, especially with something like the 135 f1.8, that's a lovely lens to use for this kind of thing, because you can use a shallower depth of field, get a slightly blurred out foreground with this road, for example, and then follow that all the way down to the lighthouse at the end, or just down to the end of the road. But if you use a wide angle, you're just getting more of the scene in there. So I think for me, what it comes down to is wide angle lenses for landscape allow you to capture where you are, right? They allow you to capture the full scene, get the full kind of vista. They capture where you are, and a telephoto lens hones in on a specific aspect of the landscape. It captures the character of the landscape. So if you're thinking about the landscape as a subject, it's kind of capturing who this landscape is. So the wide angle is getting the where, the big vista. The tighter lens is getting the who, you know, the character and the feel, and going in on specific things. Another thing that I like about telephoto lenses is with one shot that you might get on a wide angle, you might have a couple of different shots with a telephoto. There's a couple of different areas you can focus in on. I'm realizing as I'm saying all this that it sounds like I much prefer telephoto lenses for landscape. That's not necessarily true, but I do probably favor them a little bit because I just like honing in on one aspect of a landscape rather than trying to capture the whole wide vista. However, there are definitely no right answers here, no wrong answers. You can use wide angle, you can use telephoto, and actually these lenses are super, super nice for that. I love the 12 to 24. You've got a little bit of flexibility there for what you want to do. You've got that enough of a zoom that you can go super wide at 12mm, or you can punch in just a little bit to 24, which is going to give you just a little bit of a less incredibly wide shot. Some of the 20mm G Master as well can give you really nice overall landscape shots. And then of course, bumping it up to 35mm, you get that slightly more standardized look to things, which I think looks really nice. But the 135, I think, works incredibly well for a lot of shots. It's actually surprisingly versatile. I mean, obviously, I would probably use that primarily as a portrait lens, but it gives you a lot of options for how you want to shoot your landscape. And then the 200 to 600. Now, obviously that's aimed more at wildlife, more at sports, that kind of thing. But it gives you a lot of options for honing in on a specific part of the landscape. And the great thing about using such a long lens like that, especially with the flexibility 200 to 600, that's a lot of flexibility in your focal length, is that you get that kind of compression. Everything gets pulled together. And that is one thing that I really like about differing between wide angle and telephoto lenses, is with wide angle, hills, cliffs in the distance, they look smaller, they look further away, and in some ways they're less impressive. Now that can be part of the plan, you know, especially with that shot I showed you earlier. I like that everything is kind of visible in the emptiness of the shot. But with a telephoto lens, everything's kind of pulled together. Things in the distance are big, they take up a lot of the background, and they're pulled together with whatever you're shooting in the midground, the foreground. There's more compression, and I think you can work really well with that to create some amazing shots. You know, the sun can look huge, for example, because you're compressing the whole thing down. The hills in the background, the cliffs, whatever your subject is, it can all just be pulled together, and I think that can look really good. However, that said, if I was going to go for a sunset shot, which I'm not because it's incredibly cloudy, but if I was going to, I probably would go wider, because a 12 to 24 is going to capture so much sky, and if it's a glorious kind of dramatic sunset sky, that is going to look so good on a wide angle lens. You're not going to get as much of that on a 135 or a 200 to 600, where 12 to 24, even 35, even 50 mil, you're going to get a lot more. Now there's links for all of the lenses that I've been using in this video for photos, for video, even shooting this right now, all down in the description, so you can go check that out if you'd like. Of course, if you have any questions, pop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear about that as well. Any thoughts you have on wide angle versus telephoto for landscape photography? What do you use? What is your favorite lens for landscape? I think I love a 24 to 70. I know that's very middle of the road, very safe option, but I do love a 24 to 70, and a 70 to 200 both work. You know, if you've got those two zoom lenses, you are going to be capturing whatever you want, really. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe as well if you enjoyed the video. That helps us out. I will see you in the next video, and as always, the wind is here. Not as always, but as always, thanks for watching.